I think in the world of big law, fit is so much more important than trying to get into or get an offer from the highest ranked law firm. A key part of being successful in any kind of legal profession, whether it's here, public interest, whatever it may be, is
for people interested in law school or in law school. We want to be that guide for folks that gives you the inside scoop you're not going to get anywhere else. We know what big law firms are actually looking for. Lock in and go big law.
Welcome back to Lock In and Go Big Law. I'm Genevieve.
And I'm Jennifer.
And we are joined today by
the man,
the myth, the legend,
the hiring partner legend,
Kevin Lam. I feel like we need like a woo!
Nicole Kidman class.
Thank you.
We'll turn it over to Kevin to introduce himself.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm Kevin Lam. I have been at Goodwin for about 23 years.
Wow.
So I summered at Goodwin in 2002 in our Boston office.
Okay.
3 years in our Boston office, came out here probably about 200 yards that way, and was one of the first members of our San Francisco office. We opened right over there and have been out here in California ever since. An amazing ride. I do what we call technology transactions, do like IP licensing, work with a lot of cool, technology companies. Nowadays, they're all AI companies. Really get to be in the fabric of Silicon Valley and San Francisco and everything exciting that's going on here.
So what was your journey like to becoming national hiring partner? And tell us all the ins and outs.
So it is an even longer journey, okay? So before I even started in law school, my freshman year college summer job, I just applied for a temp agency, and they placed me in attorney recruiting at Wilson Sonsini. Okay, so it was sort of meant to be. I've sort of seen attorney recruiting from every angle. So that first summer, I was helping out with the summer program, and I saw how, first of all, how many things legal recruiting is involved in, right? And from organizing interviews to, making sure all the events are going great, to dealing with crises.
Lots and lots of fire drills.
I'm sure you all have stories, right?
Saw that, and he was like, hell no, I don't want to do it.
He's like, I'll just be a lawyer instead.
It actually looked pretty fun. And I think one of the most important things that, the legal recruiting group does is really make strong connections with summer associates right from the beginning. And so, you all are like the folks that summer associates first really trust and open up to and get to know. It's an overlooked facet of what recruiting does.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is when you get to learn all about the summer associates and they come to you and you're mentoring them, and then when they start as first years and then they grow up, and Ashley was just talking about this actually, about when they become partners. She's and it's emotional just because I saw you from day one.
Yeah.
Now you're this.
I'm at that part of my career now where you're starting to really see that, and you're I can't believe you were a 1L and then you made partner, and it's just such a rewarding journey.
It's really my favorite
and
part.
Hopefully those folks are also then the folks who will help out when you need interviews and mentor kind of the younger folks and everything like that. Yeah.
All right, so you did attorney recruiting.
So I did attorney recruiting. Then when I joined in Boston, I was part of the Boston hiring committee. And then I moved out here, and to be perfectly honest, the offices were kind of small, right? So in an office of 10 attorneys, you're not going to have a hiring committee of 2, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of all did, we all chipped in.
They were the committee.
They were the committee.
Yes. Was the committee.
Yeah. So we did a ton of recruiting. You may remember we opened up a San Diego office, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was back in 2008.
RIP San Diego office.
I know. Although a lot of those folks, came up here. But we all went down there. We met a bunch of, folks, and I recruited them over to our San Diego office. And it was not nearly as structured. It was more go out there, meet people, tell them about Goodwin. We really kind of were able to bring in some really great people who then supercharged, Goodwin in California. But we didn't really have formal hiring committees for a while. And then when we finally did, I was more on the periphery of that. So I wouldn't say that I was very involved in recruiting in the mid, 2010s. And then toward the later part of that decade, that's when they asked me to become the Silicon Valley hiring lead, right? I was the first ever, I guess, hiring lead in the history of Goodwin, which is great.
Set the bar very high.
Very high,
well, I don't know about that, but I did well enough that I guess they decided, all right, we're going to need a NorCal, hiring partner. And so they're like, would you do it? I was like, great.
You were hiring partner for all 3 offices for all offices?
So NorCal Hiring Partner basically oversees like San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And then we'll have hiring leads in each office.
Got it.
And then a couple years later, they asked me to become National Hiring Partner. So
here we are.
And here we are. And I've been doing this for the last 3-ish years. And it has been a blast. It's just been great. And recruiting has changed so much in the last 3 years.
It changes like every year, let alone like every month at this point.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and it's a lot of problem solving, but a lot of like, hey, you get a clean slate and you can kind of, do things in a way that's fresh and exciting and new. So I find that really fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a little more, I think, creative, I guess, because it used to be just like you were recycling the wheel, like very cyclical.
Yep.
You know what was going to happen. You knew every year in like August or September, like it was going to be OCI time. Yep. Like you just knew, and now it's like, well, like all the rules are out the window, so you can literally do whatever you want and figure it out. And so,
And I think that allows like firms to really come out and show their character, right? And show who they are. So I think in that way, it's been really good.
Yeah.
In other ways, it's maybe not so good.
Yeah,
but we're not going to talk about those other ways.
But like speaking of like thinking about being creative and looking for different things, I feel like right now under your leadership as a National Hiring Partner, we're in this new cycle already where we're already like thinking about one-on applications and like the earliest time frame that I think firms have ever done that.
Yep.
As students are literally starting school as we speak,
I know.
and also thinking about applying to jobs.
It's a lot.
What do you recommend they do to really stand out, especially in this new landscape?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, right? I remember when I first started in law school, right?
Yeah.
Like just adjusting to, the Socratic method, right? And like,
shudders.
Yes, and reading cases, and you make that transition from like undergrad, or at least I did. So I went straight from undergrad to law school.
Yep.
And like in undergrad, like everything is fed to you, you're reading textbooks, you're listening to lectures and everything like that. And it's not really interactive in that sense. You get to law school, and it's just a totally different situation, 100%. Right? And thinking back on like the whole Socratic method and getting cold called in class, it's like, it's a lot, right?
It is a lot.
So then you add to that, this early recruiting that's going on, and it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot of pressure. So I think my advice for folks is like, when you go into it, right, like, try not to put more pressure on yourself, right? Because there's already going to be, pressure to kind of adjust to the new format of school, right? You're meeting new people, you might be in a different geography. Like there's a lot that's just different. Right. And then you're going to meet a lot of people from firms and everything like that. And I think it's important just to like not put additional pressure on yourself, right? You came to law school because you're passionate about the law, right? If you're passionate about the law, then for the most part, everything will take care of itself. School, you'll figure it out, right? Because when you go in there and you start learning about, contracts or constitutional law or criminal law, all those things, if you went to law school because you're truly passionate about it, like those things will eventually click, and like it won't be like work or study anymore. Like you will truly just be learning, and that's the most important thing. Same thing for like law firm interviewing, right? Yeah. Like I think it's important to like, recognize that this is no longer like a competition. You may look at like vault surveys and rankings and things like that, and we're kind of like conditioned throughout our whole lives to like try and go for the top schools and everything like that. But I think in the world of big law, fit is so much more important than trying to get into or get an offer from like, the highest ranked law firm. And so I think that would be my advice. Just be yourself, tap into that passion that you have, tap into the interests that you have. What type of work do you want to do in the future? What kind of companies do you want to work for if you want to go work for a law firm? And then really just be yourself. And then I think everything else will just sort of take care of itself.
No, I think that's really great. And I know we started talking a little bit about fit. How do students assess for that fit for themselves, that cultural fit when they're interviewing for firms? And then what's the secret behind
secret sauce?
What you're looking for in terms of cultural fit from a student?
Yeah. So great question. One thing that I'll say is that like it should be relatively easy for someone in law school to try and get a sense for what a law firm's culture is like. But that's just the should, right? I think the reality is it actually is a lot harder than it seems, right? I remember when I was in law school, like I met a bunch of different firms. I couldn't really tell them apart. Like I'd have like an intuition of like, well, some of the people that I met were like this, but it's hard to really figure out like, are the 2 or 3 people that I met really representative of the culture of that firm?
Well, it's also hard too because I feel like practice areas have their own vibes.
Totally.
And so you're like, is this the vibe of the practice group? Is this the vibe of the firm? Like,
and then you go to career fairs and you walk up to the table and every firm is like, we're collaborative, we're collegial. And it's like, what does that really mean? How do students suss that out?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you're saying, like, when you're meeting people.
Yeah, meet people, like, meet more than just like the 2-3 people that interviewed you or 4 people that interviewed you. Like, go to events, right? Try and, meet a range of folks from the firm. And then I think then at that point, you just have to let your gut take over, right? Like, you will get a sense, just if you trust your gut, like, does this place feel like a place that, is right for me? Culturally, is there going to be a fit?
And I feel like everyone kind of talks about, and I hear all the attorneys talking about it, like, obviously it's a hard job, you can work a lot, and it's like, who do you want to be working with, like, late at night? Like, do you feel like you vibe with those people?
Yes.
Would you, obviously no one wants to be working late at night, but inevitably it's going to happen. And are you going to be, is it going to make it slightly better that you enjoy working with the people, that you're up late with?
So I think some firms, like, they're pretty good about, like, trying to be transparent about like what their cultural values are. For us, we have what we call the Goodwin way. And that's something that, anyone from law school can go on our website and take a look at the kind of values that we have. I think definitely doing that homework and trying to figure out, like, culturally, what is this firm like? What type of companies do they work with? What kind of industries do they focus on? And then looking at that whole picture and asking yourself, like, is this, the kind of firm that I would want to be at in the long term, right? I think that is really important, and I am sometimes shocked at how sometimes, like, folks don't do that, right? And they go into interviews, especially like if it's OCIs and they're meeting a bunch of different firms, and and then they haven't really done that homework to figure out early on what might be the differentiators. And then you go into the interviews and you do the events, and then you really then get to trust your instinct, having done that legwork, ahead of time. Right?
I think that advice is so important, especially given the timeline right now, because I think folks are way more susceptible now, because literally they just started classes like a couple weeks ago, and Genevieve and I were just chatting on one of our earlier episodes, and like, people are getting offers right now. In
crazy.
August 26th, 27th. How they haven't even had a meaningful opportunity to do that homework. So it is important to take a step back and really do that research and go to the events.
And the website, as you said, like, the website can be your best friend. Like, go on the website and just see, like, what all the firms have on there and all the good information. I do think it's super helpful.
And what's the reverse then of what you're looking for in terms of assessing cultural fit?
So look, at the end of the day, what we are ultimately trying to do is figure out who has the potential to be successful at Goodwin. There's so many different factors that go into that, and people's journeys are all very different. Like, there's no one good answer. Definitely alignment with kind of our cultural values, right? So number one, we really care about giving great client service, right? So excellence in everything that we do, high performance mindset, like, that is definitely something at a baseline that we're looking at. But we also are a firm that, like, one of our kind of values is that we don't take ourselves too seriously.
We do serious work, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. That's my favorite Goodwin way.
Yes. So super important, right? Because, like, we are in here in high stress situations. It could be late at night, it could be over the weekend, and we have to win as a team. We really have to, like, make sure that the folks who we're bringing in here are folks who can work well in a team and will contribute to that collective success, right? I think another facet of the Goodwin way is that we're inclusive in everything that we do. And so that is, really important for us and for making sure that we've got a culture that allows everybody to thrive and do their best work.
100%. And is there a way that a student can demonstrate that? Like, when I think about teamwork, I think about maybe like sports, like, or like showing that you were an athlete in college or something like that. Is there any other tips that folks can illustrate?
I would say all of that. There's so many different kind of signals of, someone who could potentially be successful here. I think excelling in sports, that's a great one, because it shows that someone can really dedicate themselves and put in the extra effort and has that mentality of, like, excellence, right? And a lot of times team sports, right? The ability to work within a team and achieve a common goal, right? Military service, I think, is another one that I think we found to be a really strong signal for success. Prior work experience, especially, like, in the industries that we're really focused on, right? It could be real estate, it could be, tech, it could be private equity, right? Whatever it may be, having experience in those industries, it both gives you obviously the experience, but it also shows that like you've seen it, you get it, you didn't run away from it, and you actually want more of it.
Yeah, you doubled down.
You doubled down.
And you went to law school.
Yes,
Yeah.
We actually have tried to do some more scientific studies on where there are correlations between things in someone's experience and things like that. I think ultimately each aspect or type of experience will contribute in different ways to that kind of potential for success. There's not really a list of this is predictive of success and these things aren't, or maybe they're predictive of not having success. It's really more just anything that someone does can contribute to their outlook, their experience, and their kind of ability to really thrive in an environment like this.
Another question that's on probably all students' minds, I know that we get it a lot, has to do with grades.
Yeah.
And, what does a student do if they, as we've been talking about, the recruiting timeline is so pushed up now.
Yes.
You really have your first semester.
It's scary, right?
It's scary.
That's a lot
you're dealing with
semester.
school, you're dealing with events, you're trying to figure out what the heck is happening.
Yeah.
So if someone, I guess the question is, how much do grades matter?
Yeah.
And if someone necessarily didn't, really hit it out of the park their first semester, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah. So, what I would say about that is grades matter to some degree. We expect folks to at least get a minimum threshold, right? Or meet a minimum threshold. But, once you get past that, then it is just one factor among many, right? The way that I think about it is the transition from whatever you were doing before law school, whether you're working or in undergrad, to law school, that's going to be a big transition. That's going to be a big jump. No one is expecting that your first semester of grades is necessarily going to be indicative of how the next 5 semesters go, right? But on the flip side, part of what we do as lawyers is we are put in difficult situations that may not be familiar to us, that may be high stress, that may be high leverage. And our clients, that is what they're looking for guidance from us in terms of how do I navigate this very unique, high pressure, high leverage situation, right? And so the ability to go from whatever someone was doing to a high leverage, high pressure, difficult situation and do reasonably well is sort of a signal for when you make that jump from law school to a law firm, which is also a very big jump and very different, how are you going to be able to handle that? We want to make sure that someone has at least this level of GPA, right? I think is important. So what do you do if you're not knocking it out of the park in your first semester? I will say that the first semester of law school for me was the lowest grades I've ever gotten, in my whole life. Okay.
And now you're
It's
national
such a
honoring
different
partner.
So,
That's a beautiful story.
So I will say I get it, right?
Yeah.
It happens. I think what happened for me is, I realized that law school is not undergrad. In undergrad, I was focused on studying. Here, I need to be focused on learning. And so I sort of asked myself, why did I come to law school, to begin with, right? And the answer I slowly started to realize is, well, I actually love the subject matter, right? And I want to lean into this and really have it become, part of me. And I started to become passionate about it. And so by my third year, it felt a lot less like school or anything like that. And just, it felt I love this stuff. And I remember in my 3L year, I was desperate to get as much exposure to different types of classes and things like that as I could, because I was thinking
You're this is almost
this is it. Yeah, after this, when am I ever going to have the opportunity to learn about things and go deep into things and really explore them? And so I think, my advice would be, if you're struggling with grades, just take a step back, right? Don't put pressure on yourself to get those grades up or what have you. More think about why are you here? And are you here because you really want to learn about the law and because it is something that can be a passion for you? Or, are you here because you didn't know what else to do?
You went to law school. Yeah.
The folks who can really find their passion for the law, when they then go to a law firm or wherever they end up going, right, they will be successful because a key part of being successful in any kind of legal profession, whether it's here or public interest or whatever it may be, is that you have to be passionate about it. Any legal job is more than just a job. It does require you to really lean into that, into what you're doing. So, you know, that would be my advice. Like, just take a step back, ask yourself, why am I here? And if the answer is because I love it, then it'll stop feeling like you've got to study, and it'll then start to turn into more like, I'm here to learn, and I'm going to kind of devote all of my time, energy, and passion to that endeavor.
And I think something Jennifer and I talked about in a previous episode is we wouldn't be surprised if there was like a big resurgence of 3L hiring. I know there was, it kind of like fell off a little bit, and then like now you're seeing it pick up again. So like, should for whatever reason, you know, you not get a 2L position, like 3L, it's very possible that 3L hiring is like going to be blowing up in the next couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we saw. I actually just have one other question for you in terms of practice area, because this is also a huge question we always get. How did you determine that you wanted to do tech? Was it more like you were like, I love the vibes of this group, like, they're great, or was it like, you know, I'm really interested in this topic, that industry? Could be both.
All of the above. It is a great group. I've lucked into a lot of things in my life, but like, I lucked into a great group. When I was at Wilson during those summers, I was there from 95 to 2000. And so it was an amazing time, right? Like Google, a bunch of internet companies were coming up, and, you know, and I grew up in San Jose, and I just saw all these cool, you know, companies popping up.
We're in the middle of it,
and I just happened to just get dropped in there, and I thought it was amazing. And so when I went to law school, I took, you know, like Internet and Society and whatever kind of classes I could, because, you know, I saw how transformative all of that tech stuff is. And so when I got to Goodwin, I was really very focused on, I want to work with startups. I want to, you know, do this whole tech thing. And it just so happened that we have an amazing group too. So it is kind of the stars aligning a little bit. But yeah, I kind of always knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Okay. And if someone was like unsure, I don't know, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, try a bunch of different things, right? Now, I will say that like the summer programs, like, go pretty quick, right? You know, the analogy of like, you know, holding the trunk of the elephant or the leg of the elephant, like the summer program a little bit is like you're grabbing the hair on the leg of the elephant. You know what I mean? And so,
hanging on by a thread.
It may be less about like trying to like, you know, figure out what interests you on the basis of like summer projects, and more about like, what actually interests you, right? An example I'll give of that is, I think I mentioned to someone earlier that I am a pretty like high volume podcast consumer. And like the type of podcasts that I listen to are like things about tech. The Acquired podcast, which is about kind of businesses and how they, you know, the history of their businesses. The Founder podcast, which is about kind of founders and, you know, and how they, and their histories. And so like, I don't do that for work. I do it because I'm like genuinely really interested in all that. And then when I do the work, right, then it's sort of like just an extension of what I'm already interested in, right? By the way, it also helps me to, I think, do my job a lot better. You know, the fact that I know the history of different companies, and I can better kind of pattern match.
You're fully immersing yourself in the industry.
Yes.
So,
yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yep. So that's what I would suggest. Try and figure out, what would you be passionate about? What are you passionate about? If you had to do a job that is more than a job, where can you do it where you think it could feel, you know, more like an extension of your passion than a job? That is generally in life, right? What hopefully, like, you know, people are thinking about, right, when they think about careers.
We're giving life advice too now.
Yes. Oh, seriously.
Yeah, we're getting deep here.
I know. We didn't know it was going to go like this.
But yeah, I recognize that like sometimes it takes time to get to that point. And like to the point about not putting undue pressure on yourself, like it's going to be tough to like figure that out in like your first semester of law school. It's more a journey, right? But, you know, hopefully folks can find their passions and embark on that journey.
And enjoy it. Enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey, If
you look back on little baby Kevin in law school, like what, other than enjoying the journey, what do you wish you could tell him that you hope folks can take away from this today?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a motif that we've talked about. I think it would be, you know, like everything will be fine. You know what I mean? Things always
work itself out.
Things always work themselves out. Just do what you love. And quite frankly, you know, that is the advice I was given when I was a first-year associate. We have a real estate partner here who I did like an IPO with. We had a good vibe and everything like that. And, and he asked me like, would you be interested in joining our group? And
you were like, no.
And I was like, no, I really like this whole tech thing, and and I love working with you. And he said, you know what, like, totally get it. Like, you have to do what you are passionate about, because if you do what you're passionate about, then everything else will just fall into place. And he couldn't have been more right.
Do what you love.
Do what you love.
And the rest follows.
The rest follows.
Well, thank you so much.
All right,
Yes,
thank you for having me.
This has been great.
Appreciate it.